Grandma, Mom Kersey, John, Jerome's father, Terry, Kiara, I'm so sorry. They say a true character of a man is judged by how he treats others that can do nothing for him. That was Jerome. Jerome never looked down on anybody. He was a big man, but he loved everybody. Sean's, I saw where a week or so ago when Jerome passed, you said you've lost a son, and I think a lot of us feel that way. I find it so interesting that the synonym for mercy is kindness. And I must tell you, Jerome is the kindest man I've ever met. I want to tell you one brief story that Terry shared with me about a week ago. After every home game this year, Jerome would go up into the suites and collect some of the food that hadn't been opened, load it up in his back seat and his trunk, and drive down to Old Town and pass it out to the homeless. He'd tap him on the shoulder and say, "You have a good evening. This is from the Portland Trailblazers." Jerome told me a long time ago that the number one thing that you can give a person is your time. I want to read you a brief email that I received earlier this week. I've received thousands of emails about Jerome all over the world, and of course, hundreds and hundreds of text messages, but there was one that really struck me that is a testament to who Jerome Kersey is. He's a friend of mine. Ron, I want to share with you a short note that I received from Grant's teacher. Grant is 8 years old and in the second grade. It's been a tough week for him and our whole family for that matter, with the passing of Jerome, and tragically, my father passed last Monday. I think it's wonderful that Grant considered Jerome his friend. Jerome was always extra sweet to my kids when he saw him out at Columbia Edgewater and everywhere else in town. I recently took Grant to a Blazer game where we ran into Jerome. After lifting Grant higher than he's ever been lifted by any human, he asked Grant how things were going. Grant told him he was playing second grade basketball. He then asked Jerome, when he played in the NBA, how many times he had to pass the ball before he could shoot, because he explained his team had to pass the ball twice before they could shoot. Jerome replied, "I took it straight to the hoop, my man." And he said, Jerome was a gem. This is what Grant's teacher had to say. So yesterday morning, I checked in with Grant to see how he was doing and let him know how sorry I was to hear that his grandfather had passed. He got a bit teary-eyed and said that everybody he knew was dying. When I asked him who else died, he said, "My best friend." And I expressed some surprise and asked, who was his best friend? And Grant said, Jerome Kersey. He told me that he and his dad, Rob, had dinner with Jerome once, and he was the nicest man he'd ever met. I talked to Jerome about 2 hours before he passed. And so the following morning, this is what I wrote him. Jay, I'm so glad we had a chance to talk on the phone yesterday. The best part is how we'd say goodbye as we've done for almost 30 years. I'd say I love you, and he'd say I love you too, pal. I had no idea it'd be the last time I'd talk to you. Thank you for your guidance and for your friendship. You're the finest man I've ever met. A true gentleman, caring, humble, generous, and selfless. It looks like we'll have to take a rain check on our dinner that we had scheduled for next week. I'll get up your way when it's my time. Give Duck and Luke a hug for all of us, and continue to watch over us and take care of us as you've always done. It's been a true honor to be your best friend. I'm so tremendously sad and heartbroken. I am and will continue to be so very proud to call Jerome Kersey my best friend. God bless you, my dear Jerome. The next time I make a birdie on the golf course, it'll be in your honor. Rest in peace. Love, your Ronnie boy. If love could have saved Jerome, he would have lived forever.
First, I'd like to introduce you all to my daughter and Jerome's granddaughter. This is Harley Ray Kersey. First off, I just want to thank everybody for being here, taking time out of your day. It means a lot. And I'd like to personally thank Steve Blake for honoring my father by giving up his jersey. Thank you to the Portland Trail Blazers organization, specifically Paul Allen, who graciously took care of all the travel arrangements for my father's family and friends from back east. Thank you. I could not imagine going through this without you. And to all of you here today who have come to honor my father, I'm so thankful and greatly humbled by the outpouring of your support. My dad absolutely loved the fans and the city of Portland, and there aren't enough words to describe the depth of gratitude and love that I have for all of those who have supported us and the many ways that the greater Portland community has honored my dad. This is not only a tribute to the amazing man that he was, but has also helped us start the grieving process and the healing process. Every time I read a story on social media, every time I read an article or see an interview on the news, or when someone shares these simple stories of how my dad impacted their lives, it turns my sadness into pride. I'm confident his family, friends, and this community will never let his legacy die. What is my dad's legacy? The great Jerome Kersey, mercy, mercy, Jeromeo to the ladies. JK, daddy, Portland's son, husband, G-Pa. You know, growing up, I don't think I ever really understood how famous my dad was. When people asked to take pictures with him, I assumed it was because of his devastatingly good looks. And they apparently run in the family. I'm talking about his granddaughter, of course. And any of you who knew my dad knew that he liked to look good. The man had plenty of clothes and shoes to make sure he was always prepared for every occasion. Putting on his game shoes, my dad made quite the impression. Most of you here know about his stats and career in basketball, but I think one of his greatest marks in the NBA and within the Trailblazers organization was his hustle. He appreciated and worked hard for every moment of his career, starting in his college days at Longwood. Some people would say he got lucky. However, luck is where preparedness meets opportunity. You know my dad was always prepared. Growing up, I got to see a more casual side of my dad. In my younger years, my dad spent a lot of time with my family and I in Gresham. His notoriety in the community always brought people in droves, asking for autographs, favors, photo ops, asking him for charity events. Even when we were at church, they couldn't help but wanting part of his energy. It was very rare for me to see my dad turn people down if he was available. It was during this time that my grandma even convinced him to perform in her charity dinner theaters. This may be hard for you all to picture, so bear with me. But my dad has been a bouncer to the president, a soggy bottom boy in overalls, fake teeth, and a beard. And he even sang George Strait's "You Look So Good in Love," and it drove the women crazy. Bet you never knew my dad was a closet country fan. One of my fondest memories was when I was 17 and my dad and I drove to Seattle and stayed downtown for 4 days. We walked down to Pike's Place and the waterfront. We went to the Science Museum and the Experience Music Project and just spent a lot of time together. I remember we mostly talked about school, cars, and sports. We tried to stay away from the boys' subject. And that was just fine by me. It was special because for the most part, it was uninterrupted. At one point, we were shopping, and he looked over and he saw Anderson Silva, the UFC fighter. You should have seen my dad's face. He was completely starstruck, which was very rare for him. The Spider was his favorite fighter at the time, and I know my dad wanted a picture with him, but he would never admit to that, so he told me to get up there and take a picture. Aside from being the NBA player and the community servant extraordinaire, he was just a normal guy. When it all boils down, the trip was not extravagant or groundbreaking, just spending time together. That was the best thing I could have ever asked for. In these precious moments, I saw him change from dad, later to husband, and eventually to grandpa. People handle change in different ways, and I wasn't sure how my dad would do in these new roles. But in God's hand, I knew everything, even though he was hard-headed, stubborn, and determined. I'm pretty sure he thought the same thing about me too, but I knew he would always come through. Terry can attest to that. She's been an amazing strength during their relationship. She knew how to love him strong and put him in his place when he needed a swift kick in the butt. That's what a good woman does for her man. And together they have made a lasting impact in the community for Harley and I. I'll never forget my dad's face when he discovered for the first time he was going to be a grandpa. The shock and awe on his face was absolutely priceless. I've never seen his mouth open so wide or smile so big. At first I wondered how things would go, how he would feel about me having a baby, him being a grandpa, having this new little life joining our team. Well, Dad took to being a grandpa just like he took to everything else. He formulated a game plan and exhibited hustle during a high-pressure moment. What was his play? Within 48 hours, he had already shopped at all the local stores, buying a whole baby setup for his home. You could say Harley had him wrapped around his finger from day one. Of course, it didn't stop there. Dad couldn't walk into any baby store without buying something for Harley. There was this one moment when my dad fully took on the grandpa role. It was when I was passing by the door of the nursery, and I caught him as he was changing Harley's diaper. I watched briefly and peeked around the corner while he was making all these baby sounds and being so delicate with this teeny tiny thing. There's something pretty hilarious about seeing a 6'7" man coo at a baby and say, "Who's gonna change your diaper, wipey?" And there was more than a diaper that had been changed. A great dad had changed into an even greater grandpa. Dad, I'm so glad God gave me to you and Mom, and it would be really easy for me to be angry right now for so many reasons. Harley's first birthday is right around the corner, and we are in the middle of planning the whole thing. What about Harley's first day of school? Or what about giving me away at my wedding someday? I don't understand God's timing, but ultimately, Dad, I know you would want me to appreciate the time we had together and not dwell in this moment. So I choose to imagine there's only one of two things happening to you right now. You're either dunking on Jesus or riding a Harley Davidson while singing with my grandpa in heaven. Dad, I'm devastated and I'm grieving, as we all are. However, I'm so overwhelmingly grateful and celebrating the 21 years I've had to see the many different dimensions of your character. I know you would challenge me to give just the smallest effort in some way to fill the shoes you wore for your multiple walks in life. I'm going to give my all to continue to fulfill the Kersey legacy you started by staying connected and honoring the 4 families we have gathered here today. The Blazers organization and fans, our Kersey family and closest friends, my bonus mother / grandma, Terry, and the whole Folsom family. And finally, my mom, Angela, and my bonus dad, Corey, and the whole Stellato, friends and family. We've made it this far, Portland. Let's not stop now. I love you, Dad.
This is not my thing. This is incredible. I've sat right in this area with Jerome. Let's see, for Kevin Duckworth, for Maurice, for Dale, for their services, and held his hand. And I every time looked at him and said, "Don't ever do that to me." It's amazing to think I'm standing here. So first, I just wanted to thank you all so much for the outpouring of love and support for my family. Thank you to the Trailblazer organization for everything that you've done for me and the continued support and encouragement. Jerome loved the Trailblazers so much. He was so proud to be part of this organization. People often would ask me if I would get bothered by getting interrupted, stopped, or handed the camera to be the picture man. My answer was always no. It didn't bother me because I knew how much Jerome loved the fans. He truly did. He once told me the reason why he would stop to sign an autograph or take a picture was because he was grateful that people still remembered him. Clearly, he's remembered. So, I never really watched Jerome play basketball, other than what I like to call the icy hot league. Kind of when the old guys get together on a Saturday morning, you walk in the gym, it kind of burns your eyes a little bit from all that stuff they rub on. Yeah. I never told him that's what I called it. Actually, Terry Porter was my favorite player. Well, that's what I told him. He would always get mad at me. How could Terry be your favorite player? Who do you think was getting in the ball? Well, I never really saw Terry play either. But it was just how I kind of poked fun at him. So my story about Jerome really doesn't have anything to do with basketball. My story with Jerome was a complete love story. The man that I know was loving, caring, thoughtful, kind-hearted husband, father, grandpa. Jerome and I, along with our 4 children, Kiara, Mackenzie, Maddie, Brendan, and granddaughter Harley, led a very simple life. He didn't have an event to attend or a Blazer game, most nights we spent at home. He was very much a family man and enjoyed dinner with our kids, where we sat at the table every night together. He made sure we prayed at every meal, whether at home or at a restaurant. I love that about him. Jerome took care of his family. It was very important to him that we were always okay. When I first met him, I had just been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. There had been many times in our relationship where he would have to carry me, and he did. He would wrap his big arms around me. I knew I was safe. He never complained or made me feel like a burden. He just did. It was just Jerome being Jerome. He was a caregiver with a huge heart. He loved to fuss over me, drove me crazy. He always making sure I was warm enough, made sure I was eating, taking my medication. He would often bring me flowers, cards, a can of Spam. I only ate Spam on special occasions, so it was kind of a treat. He didn't like anyone to fuss over him. I don't think that he liked the attention, but he always did a great job taking care of those he loved. Jerome loved to laugh at all the klutzy, kind of quirky things that I do. I know I look put together. It's a facade. It's not real. I would enter a room, trip, fall, things come crashing down. He loves, oh, Terry's here. So we just clowned around a lot. When he'd just be chilling out, I'd love to poke at him, see how quickly I could annoy him. Then I would just laugh at him, and he always told me that I was his most difficult child. I teased him often about how we'd grow old together. Well, I would grow old because he was already there. So if you knew Jerome, you knew he was a bit of a procrastinator. I mean, if he said he was going to do something, he would do it, but kind of did it on his own time. Took him nearly 9 years to marry me. During that time, I would always remind myself that God's timing is perfect. When we got married, it was all that. A perfect day, so beautiful. It was the happiest day of my life. I will never forget the look on his face when he first saw me walk down the aisle. He had tears in his eyes. I had finally become one with my best friend, my soulmate. As I stand here right now, this very moment, I no longer feel like God's timing is perfect. This doesn't feel perfect at all. What I do know is God's timing is God's timing. It just is. Not once have I questioned why. I may never understand. I just pray that God gives me peace. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and so did Jerome. I trust that he has everything under control. My hope is in heaven. Although my plan was to spend the rest of my life with Jerome, I am so thankful and so blessed that he loved me enough and chose to spend the rest of his life with me. His very last words to me were, "Baby, I love you." He was my dream come true. Thank you.